The Tennis Gambling Podcast on the Sports Gam Podcast Network is brought to you by Barnick Fantasy. You can play just $5, get hundreds of bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. And welcome, everyone, to the Tennis Gam Podcast here on the Sports Gam Podcast Network. It is currently Sunday night, October 26th, around 11 p.m. Eastern. I'm your host, always, Reichel, once again going solo for this pod. Time to get into the breakdown of the upcoming event. We have the Paris Masters taking place. We're going to break down the outrights and even some quarter odds, which we have for the event. Before we get into that, though, a reminder, support the show by like, subscribing to YouTube. Reminder, also leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple. It's a podcast you can find either on video format on YouTube or audio only on Spotify or Apple. It's fine either way, but once again, leave a rating and review on Spotify or Apple, and like, subscribe to help the channel grow on YouTube. Plus, a reminder, you can also check out the merch store. We have a lot of great tennis merch. We have sweatshirts, we have t-shirts, we have mugs, all for the Tennis Gambling Podcast. Think you'll like the selection. We're all affordable and comfortable. Recommend checking out what we have on the merch store. Plus, a reminder that there are also a bunch of podcasts on this network, not just for tennis. The NFL, MLB, NBA, college football, and the NHL are all live, and we've got podcasts giving out free picks on everything. Subscribe to the SGPN feed to catch every episode wherever you do get your podcast. So, starting off with the recap of what happened in the final matches in Basel and in Vienna. Unfortunately, our lock and dog picks did not go well. For the lock, what a ridiculous beat that we ended up having. We found an absolute bargain of a price, and it didn't matter anyway. Now, we had Sinner and Zverev first four games in the first set 2-2 at minus 125. What an absolute bargain, and unfortunately, Sinner choked. It was 1-2, and Sinner had 40 love. 40 love for the player who I believe has the highest hold percentage in the entire ATP. On fast hard courts, a guy who only faced 2 break points in the entire tournament entering the match, and he blew a 40 love lead in the final game that we needed, and he got broken. So not fun, I'll put it that way. To make matters worse, that was the only time Zverev broke Sinner in the entire match. It came in the 1-2 service game when he had 40 love. So definite heartbreak there. I mean, what an absolute cooler. I got nothing else to say. That's just an insane beat, is what it is. For the dog, picked up a loss with Fonseca. Team total over 13 at plus 105. Didn't get there because he killed Fokina. Thought Fonseca would win because we were going to dare Fokina to win an ATP title because we know that he blows every chance he has to do so. Fonseca beat him. The problem is he beat him too much, and he won in straight sets, only winning 12 games. So I picked up a loss there for the lock and dog. I mean, once again, that lock loss is just an all-timer. I got nothing else to add there. 40 love for Sinner, and he blows it. Is what it is, but either way, look for a better episode here for the first round of Paris. Now, to get into the actual recap of the matches, we had one very drama-free match and one match full of drama. So for the drama-free one, I ended up seeing Fonseca win a second ATP title as he beat Fokina 6-3, 6-4. Nothing else to really add. It just felt like Fonseca was a step ahead the entire match, and he was up 3-0 immediately. I know that Fokina made it a little bit interesting towards the, I'd say the middle of the set. I mean, you saw a bunch of breaks. Fokina got back on serve, actually, at 3-2, and then got broken immediately, and then ended up losing 6-3. Fell behind a break early in the second set, never got it back. So Fonseca dominated, really never a doubt for him. And as for Fokina, look, at the end of the day, I'm going to say this time and time again because I do make the clown list every week, which you might remember that I do for ATP and WTA. So I actually have to get back on that for Twitter. The point is, though, Fokina is always towards the top of the clown list for reasons like this. I know, unlike in previous matches, like against de Minaur in the final in Washington or against Kekmanovic in the final in Delray, he's just not going to win an ATP title. I believe Fokina is now ranked 15th in the world, never won a title, which sounds insane. But either way, I will keep fading him in the final of tournament until he wins a damn final. Kind of how I'm going to go about it. I saw a bunch of people on Twitter who backed Fokina because they thought it was time, he was due. I don't believe in any of that. If you're mentally fragile, you're mentally fragile. And Fokina got buried. I can't even blame the actual mental aspect of it. Falling behind 3-0 immediately in the first set isn't ideal. But Fonseca was just a monster on Sunday, and he dominated. So nothing else really add there. But Fokina still looking for that elusive first title and we thought Fonseca would win. So there you go. For the other matchup, though, very fun match between Sinner and Zverev. Said before that I did think Zverev could maybe keep it interesting. I doubted it, but I did think Sinner would obviously win. He did. It got a bit dicey, though, in the third set. Sinner had a couple of breakpoint chances. He blew them, and Zverev, it looked like, might be able to outlast Sinner physically because Sinner was cramping again, and then he was able to overcome it, got the break in the 5-5 return game, and then held to win another title. So Sinner, as expected, won the title in Vienna. He was minus 190. I said specifically I think Sinner's going to win, but you can't really bet this number. And, of course, Sinner won as a pre-tournament minus 190. So very underwhelming, I'd say, conclusion with the minus favorite winning. But it was fun. I ended up seeing Zverev give him a scare, but like Zverev usually does, he falls short against Alcaraz and Sinner, especially lately. And that's what happened again. Zverev played well. I would say that at the end of the day, he had chances, didn't convert, but either way, Sinner got the job done, which is not a surprise, but it was at least an entertaining final on a Sunday morning. So really not much drama. Oh, besides that, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything else that ended up happening. I thought there was a bit of a weird dynamic that happened in qualifying of Paris. So you ended up seeing a walkover, actually, where Vukic beat Opelka courtesy of walkover, and then Opelka got in anyway. He got a lucky loser draw. So I've mentioned this before. It's very rare, but I'll say this again. I do think there should be a rule in place when it comes to qualifying for events. If you end up walking over or retiring in qualifying, then you should be disqualified from actually getting a lucky loser spot in a draw. I understand the argument is, you're going to do a random raffle, however you normally do it when it comes to picking whoever actually gets the lucky loser draw. You should be eliminated from even contention if you don't actually finish your match in qualifying. That's kind of a forfeit for the sake of actual tournament contention, and yet they don't do it that way. So Opelka ended up quitting pre-match against Vukic, and he got into the main draw anyway, which I think is pretty unfair to other people who actually finished their matches and lost. I know Goffin ended up losing via retirement against Comasagna. Unfortunate. Goffin's had a better, I'd say, showing for the last couple of weeks, but of course we know he's older, and unfortunately his body gave out. But either way, wanted to mention it. Opelka got in despite not even showing up for his final matchup in qualifying, which I do think is pretty unfair to the other people that ended up losing in qualifying and having to go home without a spot in the Paris Masters. So anyway, that's going to do it for the actual recap there. Thinking of other stuff worth talking about, I don't have much. I remember in the video yesterday, somebody did ask me my thoughts on the women's match between Bencic and Noskova, and I did pick Bencic. I thought she was the better player. I thought Noskova ended up having a very, I'd say, fluky draw where everybody in front of her collapsed, basically, and she just got a spot into the final with Rybakina, who ended up having to withdraw from the event as well. Yeah, Bencic killed her. Not really shocked there. Thought it might be closer, but I did think at the end of the day you were looking at Bencic just being the better player, and Noskova getting a free pass into the final did not make her worthy of being a favorite as far as I'm concerned, and that was very lopsided because Noskova won 5 games. So there you go. A nice win for Bencic. Congrats to her, and I believe that is her 10th career title. So congrats to her, and also congrats to Fonseca's family, who actually showed up in time to witness the Fonseca win in Basel in person. Anyway, time to get into the breakdown of the only event on the ATP card. I believe it's the final ATP 1000 event of the year, so let me just confirm that. But I'm like 98% sure. Yeah, so it's the final 1000 event of the year. We're running out of events, by the way, if you have not been noticing. After this event, we have Athens and Metz. And then we have the ATP Finals. So we have not many events left to go, and we'll see, how we do for the outrights moving forward. But a reminder, this is the final 1,000 event of the year. They might be adding one in Saudi in a couple of years, but still, point is, should be a fun event. All the good players who are still alive, all the guys who are still standing, are going to be here, but there have been a bunch of retirements, and some star players are not going to be here. For example, Mensik and Draper and Djokovic are all not going to be here because of injury. Anyway, time to move on into the actual breakdown of Paris. Before we get into the breakdown of the event, though, reminder that brought to you by our sponsor, Book.ag. Using to bet on football, tennis, basketball, hockey, you name it. They have a prop builder, second to none. Model simple, bet anything, anywhere, anytime. And you can also use crypto for funding your account if you're getting nice payouts. And a reminder, when you head to my Book.ag, with the code SGPN, you can get 100% bet type bonus up to $5 from the customers. Look at the G promo code SGPN. We're also brought to you by Novig, which is the number one prediction market for sports in America. Get into great prices in the market with reduced juice, available in a couple states. Download the Novig app. When you do so, you get a nice deal with us. You get $50 and spend just $5 if you use our promo code SGPN. So get on the actual Novig promo code SGPN. Spend $5 and $50 for free in bonus funds. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Cam Podcast. Finished going through the recap of the finals in Basel and in Vienna. Time to move on into the breakdown of the Paris Masters. So, for the actual courts, it plays fast. Now, it's not Basel fast, but it's still one of the quicker courts on the entire tour. So, good servers should do pretty well, but it's not a make or break, so to speak, like Basel, for example. I mean, Fonseca's serve definitely was impressive in the final, and the firepower in general made it difficult to actually touch him at various points of his matches. But it's not as fast as Basel, but it's faster than Vienna. It's a pretty fast, hard court. So keep that in mind. Now, for the recent winners, Djokovic has won this a ton, but he's not here, obviously. So it's going to be a bit interesting. But Zverev did beat Humbert last year in the final. Djokovic did beat Dimitrov. You saw Rune beat Djokovic, and Djokovic beat Medvedev the year prior. So Joker has won this, I believe, 7 or 8 times, but of course he's not here because he's injured. So it might be interesting, but the fast-paced courts can maybe, in theory, give Alcaraz problems. We have seen him struggle on fast-paced courts before. Sinner had the cramping issue in the final against Zverev on Sunday, and we'll see how he recovers, but of course he's the worthy favorite in the event. So for the actual quarters, first quarter, we have Alcaraz, who's going to probably coast here. He's minus 450. I've seen some massive line differentials, though, so shop around. You can find some great prices by shopping around. Alcaraz minus 450. Rude's plus 750. Felix is plus 900 after leaving the last event early. Nakashima is at 14-1. Leheshka's at 18-1. Nori 22-1. Rinderknech is at 33-1. You're looking at Morozin 50-1. Giron 50-1. And to be honest, why bother? If you want to go for the super long shot, if you want some fun, Vacherat, who won the last 1,000 event, is at 125-1 to win the quarter. So keep that in mind. Now, Alcaraz at 450. I'm not going to take it. It's too expensive. However, I shopped around, and BetMGM also has quarter odds. They have minus 155, so I don't exactly know what happened there, but they have a $3 differential, basically, just by shopping around from Bet365 to BetMGM. Thanks for the minus 155. Now, the problem for me is I'm personally limited on BetMGM, so my max bet's like $1.50. But if you can access BetMGM, you can get 155 for what's a minus 450 price on another book. So I like Alcaraz at minus 155. No offense to Vacherat, but facing Leheshka in the first round is not exactly ideal. I mean, Alcaraz is going to roll. I mean, I'm looking at the actual draw here. He's a bye, then Nori or Baez. Thanks for the free win. Morozin, Rinderknech, Vacherat, or Leheshka. Let them kill each other, and then Alcaraz feasts on the scraps. And then the guy at the other end is Rude, who retired in his last tournament against Fekina in Basel. It's a great draw for Alcaraz, but BetMGM is drunk at the wheel. Minus 155, I think, is a great price, obviously. I'm going to take that. I do think you're looking at, once again, an opportunity for Alcaraz to have a very solid path into the semis, and we'll go from there. I see people mentioning, by the way, in the comment section, thank you for addressing it, that in previous years it was playing very fast. This year there is a new arena, so it might be playing a little bit slower. I do think it's not going to be completely slow. Like, for example, if you want to go for, I'm trying to think of a good example of a slow hard court. I'm drawing a blank. Indian Wells. Like, Indian Wells is insanely slow every year. As far as I know, it's not supposed to be that slow, but it's supposed to be slower than previous years of this event. So thank you for bringing it up. It's not going to be as fast as previous years, but I don't think it's going to be slow as well. It's not Indian Wells slow. And according to Wipeout as well, it's mentioned that Alcaraz said the new courts are slower. So we'll see how it goes, but it's not going to be as slow as the as the Laver Cup, which was completely slow and ridiculous, or Indian Wells. So thank you for bringing that up. But the slower paced courts compared to normal could help out Alcaraz in the process. But I think this price is obviously wrong. A BetMGM. Take it if you can. I personally can't. So it is what it is because I'm basically banned from the book. But minus 155 you can take if you want to get a good number on BetMGM. Moving on to the second quarter. So for this one, more open. For the second quarter here, you have Fritz at plus 125. You have de Minaur at 175. Bublik at 9-1. Fonseca is at 10-1. Routette's at 14-1. Shapo's at 20-1. Kashanov's at 20-1. Griekspoor 40-1. Diallo 40-1. They actually play against each other in the first round. Popperin 50-1. Opelka 50-1. For some reason is actually in the event. If you want to go for the super long shot, home country Ottmain, who we saw make the semis in Cincy. So maybe, but either way, it's 125-1 if you want to get really bold for this one. So for the actual quarter, the question is, do I want Fritz? I think the answer is no for this actual quarter. Fritz has a bye, then Vukic or Ottmain. Ottmain could be tricky. Don't sleep on Ottmain. I think he can maybe make a somewhat respectable run. He came back from injury, though, lost to McDonald, I believe, handily, but Ottmain we know can make it interesting. He gave Sinner a scare a couple of weeks ago. Maybe, but I do think the home crowd should be in his favor, of course, and I do think Ottmain can maybe pull off an upset here. But Fritz is in the same immediate section as Bublik, and I do think Bublik might beat him. So I'll pass on Fritz. Not a fan of the draw, and I do think the slower pace courts, which, at least compared to normal, are going to hurt Fritz, actually. I think Fritz needs to rely on the serve and the firepower to win. And I do think having potential long rallies might hurt him in the process. But I do think you're looking at Fritz being a bit too cheap at 125. I'll go elsewhere for this one. I'll go for de Minaur, who I think is a good price. I found 240. So once again, shopping around BetMGM at 70 cents better price, basically, than Bet365 to shop around. But I do think de Minaur's draw is easier than Fritz's. Buy than Griekspoor or Diallo. Diallo's been bad lately. Griekspoor had to retire or walk over withdraw from his last event, so I don't know how healthy he actually is. Kashanov's been underwhelming lately. Shapo and Fonseca, we'll see if fatigue plays a factor. But I think de Minaur, who we saw once again look sharp for the last couple of months, especially on hard court. The slower pace court should help him in the spot, so I do think you're looking at a spot where de Minaur should potentially make a deep path to the quarters. But I think 240 is a good price. I can't pass up on that. I'll take him there. But I'm not going to solely take de Minaur. I'm going to go with Bublik as well. This time, if you shop around, I believe BetMGM had 550 and Bet365 had 9-1. So I'm explaining in real time the importance of having multiple books because you can shop around and get crazy price differentials. But 9-1 on Bublik is too high. He was good last week after struggling for the last couple weeks prior. Did lose to Sinner. Everybody did in Vienna. It is what it is. But he was very good before that. Beat Cerundolo, beat Tabilo, both in straight sets. Think he can beat Fritz, but 9-1, I think it's a good number. I'll take that as my second choice for the second quarter. Moving on to the third quarter in Paris. So for this one, this is going to be the Zverev quarter. Now, fatigue might play an issue. We'll see, or play a factor, because we saw Zverev make it to the final, of course. But he looked good as the event went on. There were some concerns earlier in the event that were brushed aside because he served pretty well. But either way, I do think despite losing to Sinner, he looked good. And you might make the argument that for this quarter, he's worthy of being a favorite. I agree. Now, the problem is his father, Medvedev, is in the same quarter. So we'll see if he ends up facing him. And if he does, we'll probably go with Medvedev. But it's Zverev's plus 110. Medvedev is plus 375. Musetti's 550. Pericard's a 12-1 home country angle. Korda is a 12-1 after barely squeaking by in qualifying. Humbert's at 14-1. Echeverry's at 14-1. Fokina's at 18-1. Dimitrov's at 22-1. Forgot to mention that, by the way. Dimitrov is officially back. First match since the really heartbreaking injury he suffered against Sinner in Wimbledon, which might have resulted in the Sinner winning the entire event. I'm not saying that Dimitrov was guaranteed to win up 2-0, but a lot of people, I'd say, look back on that match as Dimitrov's best chance to maybe win a Grand Slam. Either way, though, now he's back in action. We'll see how he looks. Sonego, 40-1. Kaza, 40-1. You kind of get the point. So for the actual favorites in this quarter, to be honest, I really like the Zverev draw. And even though he lost to Sinner, he looked good. He had Sinner on the ropes. All I could ask for from Zverev, so I'll go with him here. And I found a good price. Said it was plus 110 on Bet365. Yeah, plus 190 on BetMGM. Sign me up. I'll take that. Like the price quite a bit. The path so far, buy. Then he has Echeverry most likely, who's not great on hard court. I think Zverev should win that one. Fekina plays Humbert again. We'll see what the fitness status is there of Humbert, but we'll see what happens. And Darderi Kaza, I don't really care. I think Zverev will be a decent favorite against anybody in that immediate section. And then the top seed guy in his section is Musetti, or his main competition in that section is Musetti. Yes, Medvedev could be his opponent in the quarters, which could be concerning, but Medvedev does have Munar in the first round. Not easy, so no buy for Medvedev. Pericard or Dimitrov, we'll see what form Dimitrov's in. Musetti as well, we'll see how that goes, but the point is, I'll go chalk here. I can really only see two guys winning this quarter. I'll go Zverev at plus 190, and I'll go with Medvedev at 4-1. I think Medvedev would probably beat Zverev if they face off against each other, just based on head-to-head mental dominance. But 4-1's a good price for Medvedev, so I'll go for that. But I think Zverev at 190 is a bit generous. I think it should be closer to plus 110 if I had to do it myself. So I'll go for the 190 for the value as the favorite for Zverev and give me 4-1 for Medvedev. That's the only two guys I'm picking to win this third quarter. Moving on to the fourth quarter. Now, this is the Sinner quarter, or in other words, the why bother quarter, unless you think Sinner might be potentially injured with the actual cramping and maybe he ends up withdrawing or retiring like he did against Greek Sport a couple weeks ago after winning that title in China. So, Sinner about minus 500. Yeah, basically dominant. I'd say he should own the quarter, if we're being honest here. Minus 500, give or take. Shelton at 450. Makic 14-1. Kaboli 20-1. Sarundolo 22-1. Rublev 25-1. Damn, Rublev, how the mighty have fallen. Tien at 50-1. I don't really care about the rest, to be honest. I think Sinner wins the quarter. I mean, the only argument against him is the potential injury concerns. He has a bye in the first round. He also managed to beat Zverev despite cramping in that set, so it wasn't as bad as the Greek Sport match, for example, with the cramping. But I'll go with Sinner. I mean, he's going to destroy everybody in this quarter unless he gets hurt. He has a bye, then Bergs or Mickelson, then probably Sarundolo. Like, sure, just give him a spot directly into the quarterfinal. And Shelton, we know, hasn't been good lately either. Should have lost to Mychik, ended up losing to Munar. He's been coming back from the shoulder injury. Hasn't looked good. Has Kaboli or Makic in the second round. Not a great draw for him either. Rublev can't be trusted. I think Sinner cruises, so I'm not going to pick somebody else. If you go for anybody else besides Sinner, you're just gambling on what is basically an injury retirement draw. I'm not going to bother doing that. Just give me Sinner. I found 350 if you want it, but I'm not going to bet this, but I don't trust anybody else. It's a waste of money as far as I'm concerned. You're just preying on somebody getting injured or basically Sinner getting hurt, and I'm not going to bother. Give me Sinner at minus 350, hoping the time off and the first round bye will give him enough time to get himself back on track physically, and we'll go from there. I see Nice Guy asking about a particular match, asking about the Makic-Kaboli matchup. They faced off against each other a couple weeks ago, and Kaboli killed him. So I find it kind of weird that you're looking at a rematch and Makic is actually cheaper on the outright market for the quarter. Not mentioning or not suggesting that Kaboli is going to win the quarter, but they faced off in Vienna actually 5 days ago, and Kaboli dominated. He faced 0 breakpoints in the entire match, so I find the line fascinating. The Makic is the favorite here. Or sorry, Makic was the favorite. I believe the line's moved. I'm going to go with Kaboli in that one. I think Makic is a good player, but it feels like Kaboli's got more talent. I could have sworn I favored, but that makes it even more interesting that Makic is the dog in the first round, and yet his outright to win the quarter is cheaper than Kaboli. I find that kind of weird. So I like Kaboli in this one, but I do find it weird. It's minus 122, though, so the line's kind of been back and forth. But I do find it interesting, and I'll read it off once again. Makic to win the fourth quarter is available at about 14-1, and yet Kaboli to win the quarter is at plus 2,000 when he's favored to beat Makic in the first round. It's really weird. I like Kaboli in that one. He looked very comfortable against Makic in the last meeting in Vienna. I think the price is too cheap. I'll go for Kaboli personally for this one. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the quarters. Time to move on into the hours to win the event. Now, the question we always have to ask ourselves when it comes to evaluating the outrights of events when Sinner and Alcaraz are both in the actual draw, can anybody challenge them, or is it a waste of money? You got to start there. So reading off the odds, Sinner's at even money. You have Alcaraz at plus 140, Zverev's at 10-1, Fritz is at 12-1, de Minaur's at 16-1, Shelton 22-1. For the record, a horrible price on Shelton. Medvedev at 25-1, Musetti 66-1. So it goes from 0 to 100 quickly, with Medvedev at 25-1 directly into 66-1. Now, is a long shot going to win it? Do we get Vacherat 2.0? No, I don't think we do. This is what happens when you have Sinner who gets injured and quits, and Alcaraz takes the week off. Vacherat and Rinderknech make it to the final because nobody else in the entire tour is trustworthy. So now that Sinner and Alcaraz are back, I am not picking really anybody else to challenge them. I think one of these two people win. You could argue that Sinner is going to struggle physically, maybe, but the bye does help. And I do think with him getting past the cramping early in the third set, playing very solid tennis throughout the end of that match, and even that crazy break that he ended up getting in the 5-5 game, the backhand down the line, like Sinner was looking fine anyway, despite having some cramping issues. I think he'll be fine. I see Sashi mentioning the actual investment by Felix and Ruud. A lot of points up for grabs. I get it, but I do agree that's why they ended up retiring in Basel, because they wanted to maximize their points in Paris. The problem is, do I actually trust them enough to make good on that promise of actually maximizing their chances? I'm not really sure. It is worth mentioning, though, as Sashi brings up, it's a good point, that some guys are more motivated than others, besides the prize money, of course. They can still get points, which they need desperately for the race in Turin. Musetti's in there. Bublik's in there, too. Decent amount of guys are still fighting for spots, so it's a good point to bring up. But the question is, do I actually trust Felix and or Ruud to make good runs? I'll dive into those guys in particular. I mean, Ruud's draw is interesting, but Ruud coincidentally plays against Felix in the round of 16, and the winner plays Alcaraz. So we'll see who wins that head-to-head matchup, but Felix and Ruud I'd care more about if they weren't on a collision course for the round of 16, and the winner played Alcaraz. So just a really bad draw for both guys. So I think it matters, but damn, the draw makers didn't do him any favors for the sake of this event. But we'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. But for Ruud and Felix, I'd care more if they weren't going to play against each other in the round of 16. But either way, I think it's a good point mentioning. Keep an eye on Musetti and Bublik, etc. Retirement might not be an option for these guys because there's really only one 1,000 event left, and it's this one. So we'll see what happens. But either way, do think it should be a pretty entertaining tournament. But for the sake of the question that I asked to everybody else, are you picking anybody besides Sinner and Alcaraz? I am not. Simply put, give me Sinner at plus 125. Give me Alcaraz at plus 140. For the sake of the draw, I think Alcaraz's draw is more friendly than Sinner's, but I do think both guys should look sharp anyway. Mentioning the quarters once again, you're looking at Alcaraz being in the de Minaur section, and you're looking at, once again, Sinner being in the section involving what I think is a potentially tricky semifinal matchup, maybe, but I think in reality it should be pretty straightforward for both guys. But at least Alcaraz gets to avoid Sinner, Medvedev, and Zverev until the final, where you're looking at Alcaraz getting de Minaur and Bublik and Ruud and Felix, and I don't really care, to be honest. I think Alcaraz would be my main pick if I had to go for one guy, but I'm going for the same strategy that I use for every Grand Slam, only going for Sinner. No point of wasting money on other people. Give me the two chalky favorites. Give me Sinner at 125 and Alcaraz at 140. I'll skip the others. I don't really care. If you want to go for a long shot, I'm rooting for you. But in reality, I do think you're looking at a chance maybe of Zverev or Medvedev maybe beating Sinner if they're compromised. I doubt it. But I think Alcaraz would just clean up the trash at that point. It's tough to beat Sinner and Alcaraz in the same event. I can't think of the last guy that actually did that in the same event. Who was the last guy that beat Sinner and Alcaraz in the same event? I don't even know the answer to that, but it doesn't happen that often. So give me Alcaraz and Sinner as my thoughts for this one. My respect to Zverev is picking him to win the quarter. That's it. I'm still not taking him against Sinner again in a rematch or against Alcaraz in a hypothetical final. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for the preview of the Paris Masters. Time to go on into the lock and dog picks. Before we get into the lock and dog picks, a reminder that we're brought to you by our sponsor, which is Earn Fantasy. Play Fantasy Pick'em, just 500 times your entry. Actually, now it's 5,000 times your entry. Used to be 500, now it's 5,000 times your entry. So it's in select states, so make sure that it's available in yours. If not, then once again, it could be 500, but in some states, it is 5,000. So check that out. They have team picks, so you can pick sides and totals. Great option for anyone looking to get on the action. And a reminder, you can also check out the new offer they have for new customers. Play just $5, get $100 bonus funds. Use promo code SGPN. We're also brought to by Rhythm. So they're also a good start in college football and NFL. They also just added NBA. They're giving away cash prize every week just for tracking your bets in the app. Track 5 bets of the same type model that you build and you win 1K. No questions asked. But we also have a nice discount code. Use the code SGPN25 for down the app for our first month. That Rhythm once again, promo code SGPN25 for quarter off your first month. Welcome back, everyone, to the Tennis Scam Podcast. Finished going through the preview of the outrights for Paris and some quarter stuff. Time to move on into the lock and dog picks. So for the locks, we've been pretty good with team totals lately. Going to a matchup taking place, I believe, on Monday. Going to be, or I should say on Tuesday, between Lehechka and Vacherat. For this one, we're going to go with Lehechka team total over 12.5 at -142. Now, I know people in the comment section mentioned that the court should be slower than normal, but both guys are still good at serving, not great at returning, and I do think you might see at least one long set in this match. There's been a 7-5 or 7-6 in 3 of Lehechka's last 4 matches. Good serve, good forehand. Vacherat the same way. Returning, though, not exactly a strength of both guys, and I do think you might see one long set between 2 good servers. Vacherat, though, has been a marathon man. We saw it especially on full display in Shanghai. But he also went to 3 sets against Fritz. So he kind of showed up after the miracle Cinderella run, and he proved it wasn't a fluke. He gave Fritz a series run for his money in 3 sets. 9 of Vacherat's last 11 matches have not ended in straight sets. So I've said this before, I'll say it again, couple ways to get there. Lehechka could win a competitive straight set battle, could win in 3, or even lose in 3. Couple ways to get there. I think Lehechka's the better player, but I do think Vacherat's serving can still get him to a 5 or a 6 in a set. Good enough for me. Give me Lehechka team total over 12.5, -142. We saw him lose in the final in Brussels to Felix, lost immediately in Basel to Dzanshulp. I'm fine with that. He ended up being exhausted. He got basically a week off. Now he's back here. Think he'll look sharp. I don't mind Lehechka team total at 12.5. Shop around, though, I found a 142, I believe, on FanDuel. Other books had like -170 to shop around, but I believe it was FanDuel that had 142. So once again, you can find some good number shopping around, but I'll go for the team total as my lock for the show. For the dog, Deja Vu. We have Fonseca taking on Chapo again for the second time in about 3-4 days. I'm going to go with Fonseca minus the 1.5 games at +100. Most books have like -105. I found an even money, but I don't mind it, of course, at -105. Fonseca just won a title in Basel. He's won 7 of the last 8 matches he's played. He's been good. And we know the upside's there. The issue is consistency, but we know Chapo has been a bit underwhelming lately. Had a decent run in Stockholm with one caveat. He dropped sets to everybody. He's lost at least 1 set in 6 of his last 7 matches, so he can punt the set. We've seen it happen before, even against a weaker competition. We saw him drop a set in Stockholm against Emer, and he dropped a set to Borg. I think Borg stinks. But either way, Chapo ended up dropping a set to both guys. We saw him quit in the match against Fonseca semis in Basel. Fonseca was up 4-1 in the 3rd set. A lot of people think Chapo wasn't even hurt. He just mentally checked out because he thought he was going to lose, and then he ended up just no-showing the rest of the 3rd set. The point is, whether Chapo was hurt or not, Fonseca got to him mentally, and I do think Fonseca, after struggling early with his, I'd say, control and with the errors, he buckled down and he dominated the last set and a half. So I'll go for Fonseca to beat Chapo again. I get the argument is Chapo maybe gets revenge after losing to Fonseca. The point is Fonseca, I'd say mentally, is wise beyond his years, despite only being a teenager. He's mentally tough, and he goes down swinging. Chapo, not so much. We saw in Basel, whether you believe he mentally rage quit or not, he let go of the rope and he went home. I think that if he falls behind early again, he might fall behind by a lot and might end up losing. So I don't mind Fonseca. I think it's a good price in general. I think you're looking at an opportunity for Fonseca to beat Chapo again. He's mentally tougher than Chapo. Chapo's been kind of a mess, even with the wins he's had. Going 3 sets against Emer and against Borg, pass. Not interested. Give me Fonseca to win once again. I think it's a generous number. You can go for the money line if you want to, if you think Chapo might quit again. That was like minus 125. I didn't mind the money line too, but minus 1.5 games at even money, I think it's just a good price. I'll take that as my dog for the show. So once again, the lock and dog picks. The lock's going to be on Oleshka. Team total over 12.5 games, minus 142 against Vacherat. For the dog, give me Fonseca minus 1.5 games in the rematch against Chapo at even money. It's going to wrap it up for the show. Back once again for the round of 16 in Paris. Till next time, I'm on Twitter, Reichel Radio. Good luck to all of you and all of your bets. Bye, everyone.